Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Ryan. If you've been following along with the project, our 56 Bel Air still has some rust repair to be done. And in the last video, we fixed some of the problematic areas around the firewall, and we actually got into the driver's side dog leg of the cowl and found even more rust and rot. So we pulled that cap off in the last video, and in today's video, we're going to rebuild everything underneath there, weld our new dog leg onto the cowl, and move on from there. So this is actually being filmed after the video is recorded. It's all done now, so we're going to go back in time a little bit, show you guys what we found when we pulled that off, and then we'll go through the process of repairing it. And here's what we got. So this panel is separating at this flange that folds over the firewall here. We have that rot hole there, which I knew about because I was able to see that from the inside. This, I have to see if I can find a picture of one on a car that's still whole, but I feel like this probably sweeps up and acts as a channel to route the water down and out that hole that was in the stock panel. And more of the same thing down here. Little ugliness around the back of the door hinge as well. In the fight of my life to get that vent out because that was all rotted out. I haven't been able to find a replacement one for that yet. Good times. So I'm going to keep working at this vent to try and get that out. I'm going to end up taking this channel out just so I have a little bit of a better idea of what I'm working with, or what I'm not working with really. And then I think the plan for this is going to be to remake this whole section. Just thinking it might be better to do it in pieces, but we'll see what happens. I'll just keep cutting until there's nothing left, and then we'll rebuild from there. I'm going to end up making this entire patch in a couple of different pieces just to make my life easier. So the first piece that I want to take care of is actually the largest piece. So that is going to come from this point down here, and it's going to come up to the edge of this cut here. And this flange, I'm going to obviously clamp that closer, but that'll get welded up here, here, and then I'm going to end up doing the flange that wraps around and gets spot welded here in a separate piece, and we'll just weld up the seam all the way down. So I took some measurements just to get myself a rough piece that will cover the entire thing. So I'm going to trim that up now. And then after we have that, we can bring it back. We can make some finite adjustments, do a little bit more trimming, and hopefully get that piece welded in. And I think once that is done, probably going to end up doing the piece around the lower door hinge here. And then we'll move up to the piece that curves down from the cowl. And then last piece, we'll finish up the flange that comes all the way down, and then I have the new cowl piece, the whole cap that's going to cover all the work we're about to do. I have that inside, so that'll be the last piece to go on. All right, so I'm just going to start off by making some marks in the rough area that we need this piece to be. Then I'll just use my combination square, try and get these lines as straight as possible, and then I'm going to try using my shears to cut this. I've used it for thinner aluminum. It says it's good up to 18 gauge, which is what this replacement steel is. Alright, so template's cut. I don't know about you guys. I love an angle grinder as much as the next guy. If you've watched even 2 of my videos, you realize that it's probably the tool that I use the most. But those shears are awesome. A lot less mess, less risk of getting something in your eye. So definitely a good tool to have. But now that I have this panel cut out, I'll set the camera up. We'll kind of mock it up on here, trace it out, and start working on the final fitment. And then we can start welding our first piece in. Okay, so with my piece clamped in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside the car, and I'm going to start tracing out what needs to be trimmed, because remember we had a little piece of material from the existing metal that was here. So I want to make sure we trim around that so we can get welded both top and bottom. And then I'm also going to try and figure something out as far as cutting out that hole for the vent, whether I end up putting it in or put a block off plate in there. I would prefer to have it at least open so you're not cutting this out with an interior in the car. So I'll get behind here, mark that out, and we'll take another cut. All right, so this is what I have traced out from the bottom, and you can kind of see how this shape should, hopefully, fingers crossed, fit there. Now, this cutout here, we're going to end up getting rid of this. All right, that is going to go around that piece. That is still good metal. And then I have, so the top of the vent is there, and then there was a tiny little piece left over on the bottom there. So I'm going to try and get a little bit of an outline in there. And like I said, I'll cut that out now. This way down the line when this car has a full interior in it, and you know, if I can find that vent to put back in the car, I'm not blowing sparks all over a new interior. So I will cut this out and I'll bring you guys back when that's all done. New panel is cut, trimmed. I have it clamped in place. So I want to go ahead and throw a couple of tacks on there just while I position it exactly where I want it. And then from there, we'll hit it with some primer and continue welding the seams up. All right, so it's been a little over a week since I've had a chance to work on this car. Work and everything else got in the way. But where we left it off, I had this panel welded in. I cut and welded in a panel that curved up to the cowl. It's obviously not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's structurally sound. It's in one piece, and it will get the job done. Now, this piece on the bottom, I may have explained it earlier, but this piece is a little tricky. So this is what we originally cut out. And if you see this stamping on the inside, so this backing plate actually butts up against the door hinge mount here. And then that is all one piece of metal that gets tied in here and also curves down and ties in to the bottom of the rocker. They do not sell this in one piece. The only thing I was able to find is an entire cowl piece that comes down, which probably could use because we still have some metal repair to do up there. But because this car has been bleeding me dry financially, I figured I would just spend all my time making the panels. So I'll show you guys what I came up with. So this is the piece that I'm going to weld in to the bottom there. As you can see, I made that little pocket, and it's all, not that it's very pretty, but it's all welded up and one part. So I'm going to toss this in. We're going to tighten up the two bolts into these threaded holes in the plate. That should sandwich it up against the door hinge, and then we can go ahead, start welding this panel in, and then hopefully start tying this into our cowl piece here and on the bottom where it curves along as well. So I'll throw this in, we'll see how that looks. If it's close enough, we'll start welding it in. Like I said, it's not going to be the prettiest thing in the world, but structurally it'll be good to go. And you're not going to see any of it either because it's all going to be behind that new cowl dog leg that I also finally got in. I have that inside. So once this is all buttoned up, we can put that on and lay this part of the project to rest. So put this on, see how it lines up. Okay, I have that bolted in, and you can see how that piece lines up. The contour is pretty close over here for that little dimple in the middle. But pretty happy with the fitment on that. I might have to bring this flange out a little bit more to meet that and weld that up. But I am going to start welding this in. We'll sand all that flush. Actually, I'm going to pull this back out. We'll hit this with weld through primer. This way, keep everything in there protected. And after I put it back in and weld it up, then I'll bring you guys back once that's all in, and then we can start on the next piece. Okay, Okay, I got most of my patch welded in. I tied this plate into the side of the cowl over here. Next thing we have to do is fix here and that small hole up there as well. And what I did for that was just took a piece of 18 gauge sheet metal, the same stuff that I've been repairing the rest of this with, kind of just traced that piece onto the cowl, cut that a piece of the cowl out, and what I'm going to do is just weld it up on the seams here, and then if we have to, I can either bend this down or just trim that, weld it up, and that'll take care of that. And then the last section we have to fix is up there. And then I think the only thing left to do before this cover can go on is just to replace this front piece that wraps around, and we'll weld it to the rest of the firewall here. So almost done with this. I'm going to get that welded in. I'll fix that second spot up there, and then probably throw a coat of seam sealer on this, get it in paint, and then we can put our cowl piece on. Oh, one more thing. That piece that we took off the original inner cowl that was rotted out, it was almost like a trail that routed any water that came up through the cowl down rather than going to where the door hinge is, which is why this old one rotted out. So I'm gonna have to come up with something for that as well. So still a lot more to do, but I'll get that welded in and see what's next. Cowl piece is finally done. I coated everything with weld through on the seams where we're going to weld it up. I actually welded a flange onto the front, so now this original panel that we put on actually wraps around. It is one piece with this on the firewall. I built a little channel, so whatever debris and water comes through the cowl will come through this channel, get routed down and out the hole on our cowl panel, which we're going to weld up in a minute. Might be difficult to see because of the paint. And I coated everything with seam sealer as well. Hopefully this won't be getting wet, but any of the welds that I put on there will be sealed up nicely. So with that done and out of the way, we can go ahead, put our cowl cap on, and call this project done. This piece that I cut off that was up here, probably going to wait on until the cowl panel's on, and we'll do that next time when we tackle this windshield frame, which I'm not looking forward to, but getting there. So I'll hammer that piece on and weld it up. I can finally call this project done. So new cowl cap is welded in, got everything seam sealed, threw a coat of paint on it. We can cross one more thing off the list for this car. Getting very close to reassembly and bodywork. And I've just about had it with rust repair, so that's a good thing. We got one more major project to do right up there. So that'll be the next video, but thank you guys so much for watching. See you very soon.